Hi guys, welcome back to Masculine Mastery, the show where we talk about things that matter to men. I'm your host, Dr. Asif, and with me all the way from the States, we've got Miles Cunningham, the world's only, the world's first, the OG masculine identity coach. Miles, belated Happy New Year and welcome.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you, Doctor. I think it's the first time I've ever been interviewed by a doctor. So I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for, hooking up this collaboration, man. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you. I've been following you for a while now across all social media. Instagram, some of your reels have got real traction. And I think the reason why it resonates is because you say stuff that a lot of men think, but they don't dare to say it.
Right.
Where did this outspokenness, this kind of brazen brashness come from? Was it in a young Miles, or was it something you found later on through life?
Well, to be honest, it's something that I grew up with. I come from, first of all, I was born in Jamaica, so I come from a Jamaican family, and in a lot of island families, your parents say whatever they want to say. You understand? Your parents, even when they're lying, they're telling the truth, so to speak. So, and especially my family, because I come from a very, especially my father's side, we speak very loudly. We speak our mind. We're very passionate. Some people call it emotional. I call it passionate, because especially on the masculine side, it's never just emotional or irrational. It's passion with a purpose. Like, you speak loudly and you speak brashly with a purpose behind it. Right. And so this is something that I've grew up with, especially on my father's side. And so over the years, it just kind of developed into my style and how I choose to express myself, especially when I'm saying something that I truly believe in. Right. So that's what causes me to be very passionate. That's what causes me to be so brash, because it's like, when I consider something that is the truth, I want to express it so it leaves an impact, right? So there can be no mistake in what I mean, right? So you can't. So because if I say it calmly, as if another person would say it, you might misconstrue my message, and you might think I'm saying what someone else is saying. I want to be very clear, and I want everyone to understand that I'm saying what I truly believe is honest and righteous, from an honest place. And so that has just been a part of my DNA, literally, my whole life. And now that I've gotten older and more mature, and I've embraced more of my identity, because, you got to understand, coming up through your teens, your 20s, there was a big part of me. I'll rephrase that. Coming up through my teens and my 20s, and even some of my early 30s, there was a big part of me that still wanted to, I was still motivated to impress people, right? I was still motivated to do for others. And understanding the game and learning the game and studying the game, I began to realize how much doing for yourself means in your effectiveness to be able to do for others. Right. So I always go back to this analogy where I talk about the oxygen mask coming down from the ceiling in the airplane, where they tell you to put on your oxygen mask first. And it makes perfect sense, because if I can't breathe, there's no way that I could help someone else out, because there's no oxygen getting to my brain. So I decided that, wow, I really have to focus on me. You understand? So with all of those things put together, like I said, my genetics, my family upbringing, and realizing how important I am. Right. It just culminates into my identity, today, where I'm not afraid to say what I truly mean. I'm not afraid to be passionate. I'm not afraid to express myself exactly and uniquely how I choose to express myself, unapologetically.
And that comes across, certainly, being authentic, being a genuine, authentic, unadulterated, unfiltered self. And in a world of political correctness, censorship,
yes,
it's really refreshing to see. And it's not always about the content, it's how you deliver it. So I know as a doctor, when I speak to some of my patients, I can have the same message, but if I deliver it in a certain way with emotional connection, where that resonates,
right,
they are more likely to give up on bad behaviors.
right.
And a lot of your content revolves around game awareness. And you mentioned their identity and masculine identity. That's what you coach men to be game aware.
Right.
But game awareness starts with an internal awareness of where your flaws are.
Exactly.
What is a masculine identity to you? What in your own words, what does that encapsulate? A masculine identity in 2023.
Okay, so first I have to say the word consistency. Right? Identity is something that is more or less consistent, right? Because even if you look at your ID card, all the information that's on your ID card day to day is pretty much consistent, right? I mean, yeah, we can move and our address might change, but your height, once you reach adulthood, your height doesn't change, your race, your hair type, your eye color, none of these things don't change. Your name, you understand? So identity has a lot to, I say that identity has a lot to do with consistency. And so when we can be consistent in the face of all the influence and all the emotionality and because you see, you mentioned the word political correctness, right? But
It's saying, 1 second, Miles.
Yeah.
It's saying your computer stopped recording. Is it recording on your side still?
It says it stopped. Your computer stopped recording. Your only recording stopped due to hardware limitations. Others continue to record. Is yours still recording?
Yeah, mine's still recording. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can go ahead.
Yeah, I think if mine's still recording, it should be fine. Yeah, I'm not sure if it. Yeah, so it should be okay. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I was saying, you mentioned you mentioned political correctness, right? Well, looking at political correctness, if you think of something from the 80s, that same idea is different in the 90s, which is different in the 2000s, and so on and so forth. So even political correctness changes, right? But a man's identity, a man's position in society never changes. And that leads back to consistency. So for me, the basis of a man's identity is consistency. And what allows a man to be consistent is his logical mind, right? Is his ability to be stoic, his ability to he can embrace his emotions, but he doesn't react to his emotions. He can process his emotions and still use the energy from his emotions to produce, to create based on who he is as a man. Because the number one thing with identity and consistency is remembering who you are. So that means environments might change, situations might change, ideas might change, society might even change. But a man's identity stays the same. And because a man's identity stays the same, at the end of the day, after we get through all of the emotionality, after we get through all the idealisms and the political agendas and correctness and so on and so forth, it is the consistency of men's identity that keep society and civilization afloat. You understand? It's kind of like gravity. Think about this. If gravity wasn't consistent, could we even build buildings? Could we build roads? Could we plant trees? You understand? Could plants exist if there was any gravity keeping it stuck to the earth the way it is? Yeah. Nothing would grow. Nothing would work. Yeah. So a masculine identity is literally, and I also say this a lot too, a masculine identity is literally in my estimation, the closest thing that any of us has to the reflection of God himself.
Yeah. Because in all the Abrahamic religions, man was created in God's image,
Right.
or God breathed into man. This is a consistent theme in the Abrahamic faiths. So, and even in the Quran, God Almighty says, we created man in the best of shape. We molded him and created him for the best of shape. So that, that burden of responsibility, you are God's vicegerent on earth. You are God's representative on earth. We've got that duty to uphold. And it's never been as difficult as it is now. Because, 100 years ago, a 22-year-old was fighting in World War One. Exactly now, World War One, World War Two, 100 years ago, 22-year-old, in bomber planes on the platoons with a 50% chance of living or dying.
Yeah.
Now a 22-year-old is not sure whether he's a guy or a girl, or he's not sure about anything. Exactly. Identity is in real crisis.
Exactly.
It's in real crisis. And it's a very powerful example you gave there of gravity. Gravity is a physical constant. It doesn't change. It's got a defined weight. It doesn't change. It's a physical law.
Yes.
And that's a powerful thing, because God doesn't change, and we were created as a representation of God on earth. Therefore, we should not change. And I think that's a very powerful metaphysical analogy. And you mentioned the word stoicism.
Yeah.
That's been so important for me.
Yeah.
Going through death, disease. I was on the front line of COVID and seeing people die my age, etc. Family members die.
Yeah.
And having that stoicism, and it's very important what you said. Yes, having emotions. We're not robots. We're not cyborgs or androids. We are humans. We have emotions, even as men.
Yeah.
But you let them come up, you process them, then you bring them down.
Yes.
You never let them overflow. You never suppress them. You allow them to rise, but you don't react. You respond, but don't react. And I think that is so important, emotional regulation. Yeah. So what are the trends you're seeing, apart from a masculinity, identity crisis? What are the trends that you're seeing since COVID in men that are coming to you for coaching? What are the main themes that they're seeking help for?
Okay. Well, one main theme that I will discuss, and I will also use it to address something that you said that I would like to put a nuance on, right? Is that I heard you use the word burden, right? Now, to a man who accepts his position, the word burden is a good word, right? But the trend that I'm seeing these days is that most men look at the word burden as a negative. And so with a lot of the sessions that I do and the conversations that I have, I like to use the word privilege. I like to remind men that you may look at it as a burden or you may see it as overwhelming, but I try to meet them halfway and remind them, hey, masculinity is a privilege. You understand? It's like, so that's one thing, kind of trying to guide the minds of the young men to make them realize that they should be looking at masculinity as a good thing, as a privilege, as a position where they should celebrate it. You understand? Because even if we look at something like feminism, right? A lot of feminism, the reason why feminism went off the rails is because they were taking away the celebration of the position of the woman. You understand? And a lot of what's happening today is that because of society, because of feminism itself, because of certain other things, a lot of men are looking at the position of man and not celebrating it. You understand? So I try to remind you.
I'm ashamed to be a man.
That's what I'm saying. So I try to remind guys, hey, you might think of it as a burden. You might think of it as a negative. I implore you to think of it as a positive, as a privileged position, because I look at it and I like the feeling that I am an agent of structure. I like the feeling that I am an agent of logic. I'm an agent of that same gravity that keeps things planted to the ground so we can build around it. You understand? So that's one trend. Another trend is, and I think this other trend stems from that, is that, a lot of men are, they don't believe in themselves, and when I say they don't believe in themselves, meaning that the singularity of their identity almost means nothing unless they can fit it into a group. And that's the part that I don't like, because like, even, and we have these debates all over the place, as far as YouTube and stuff, where we talk about all the different pills. And it's like, I see a lot of guys wanting to conform to different groups, and, whatever color pill or whatever acronym you want to use. I'm not here to bash or denigrate any of them, because, I see that there's a purpose. And if you can fit yourself into any situation where you can try to understand a little bit more about life, masculinity, or dating, or personal relations, do what you have to do. You understand? There's steps to everything, and every man takes their own path. So I'm not here to denigrate, but what I'm saying is, a lot of times I see men getting lost in a sea of a group of men. And and that same group of men go back to my first trend, which is they don't celebrate masculinity. You understand? And and because they don't celebrate masculinity, and they're not focused on masculinity, they're not focused on themselves, they decide to blame other agents for their current state and condition. And to me, in my book, that's a mistake, because I've always said that blame is equal to responsibility is equal to power, right? They say with great power comes great responsibility. So ultimately power is responsibility. Yes. But and if responsibility is equivalent to blame, then what are we saying? If we're blaming something else for our current conditions that we're not satisfied with, we're literally putting the power in something else. And just for an example, a lot of guys love to blame women. A lot of guys love to blame, society and this and that. And it's a mistake. To me, it's a very big mistake, because it's only until you look at yourself and realize how responsible you are. You see, going back, all of it's connected, right? But if you think of it as a burden, of course, you're not going to celebrate your power. But if you think of it as a privilege, you will celebrate your power. And if you celebrate your power, then you have a chance to use the power that you have in yourself as a singular identity within masculinity to make a change. And that's the life that I live every day. I do what I do. I literally created the title of masculine identity coach. And the only reason why we can, you can even announce me as the first and only masculine identity coach is because I celebrate who I am. And I looked at the terrain, I looked at the environment, and I realized my identity within the environment. Now, there are things that I talk about that other guys talk about too. So I guess you can call me guilty of being a part of a group as well. But you will never mix up Miles Cunningham's name with anybody else's name, even in that group. You see what I'm saying? Because Miles Cunningham celebrates Miles Cunningham. And, just to touch on one more trend, even a lot of guys don't, they've been shamed so much that as soon as you begin to celebrate your identity, you start to invoke connotations of arrogance and conceit and ego. You understand? And, I try to tell guys that it's not arrogant to love yourself. It's not conceited to believe in yourself. It's not wrong to love yourself. You understand? It's the only thing that's right, actually, because loving yourself doesn't mean that you're better than anyone. It just means that you're different, and we should celebrate that difference because we all have different things to bring to the table.
In fact, it's the greatest form of gratitude towards God, is loving yourself. You can't be grateful for what God has bestowed you with, right, if you inherently despise yourself.
Right.
And certainly in my coaching work, I see a lot of this. People who have grown up with very poor body image, parenting, etc. And they grow up despising themselves. And that's why male suicide rate is so high. We really are going through an identity crisis, and especially with things that have happened recently, over the last few months. Men are actually apologizing for being men and not embracing their identity. There's something called extremism, but there's also fragility on one side, fragile masculinity. Right. That's what leads to the school shooters and all this kind of emotional bubbling up. You mentioned something there. You alluded to it, control and external things. That's the core pillar of Stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can only control yourself and your reaction. You can't control external things.
Exactly.
You can't control what's happened to you in the environment. You can't control the environment, your friends, etc. You can only control your reaction to it. And a real good term for that is extreme ownership. Take ownership of a situation, and if you can't change what's there, why worry about it?
Right.
And that was one of Marcus Aurelius's great sayings. You know, if you can't really change it, why spend your time worrying about it? And I think a lot of us get stuck in this perpetual cycle of worry, 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 and we actually never get any productive work done because we're always worrying about what we can't change.
Right.
And that then, disempowers us from, like you said, actually living ourselves.
Exactly.
Because we're so concerned with what's going on in society. Miles, I wanted to ask you, what was a trigger in your life? There usually is a trigger in someone's life.
Yeah.
For them to change path or actually not go down the conventional route of college, high school, job, etc. What made you go into this particular branch of coaching? Was it something that happened in a relationship? Was it something that you saw growing up in Jamaica or in America?
Mm-hmm.
What was the trigger?
Well, to be honest, Dr. Asif, there were many triggers. There were many triggers. A lot of different scenarios and situations in my life where I saw that I was doing something, and every time I tried to do, like, I kept doing the same thing, getting the same results. And I thought I should have been getting different results, and nothing changed until I decided to believe in myself and put myself first. But I'll say, if I had to give an example, I was in an 18-year relationship with a woman, and she had 3 children. And when I explain this story, some guys they're like, yo, what? Miles Cunningham was a stepdad and blah blah blah. And but I want to tell you that it was one of the most, like pound for pound, that full 18-year relationship from day one to the last day was literally where I got all my game from, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? Where I learned so many lessons, and and truth be told, most of it was good. Because I had, I've always had, like I said, I come from a strong family, so I've always had a baseline of respect and tolerance that, a relationship is not going to go past a certain point with me. You understand what I'm saying? So like I never heard the "you're not my dad." I never had the "you're not my dad" issues or certain other disrespectful things that happen to certain men. You get what I'm saying? So it's nothing for me to complain about, but there's so many lessons that I learned, and I looked through the different critical moments of that relationship, and I realized how many different times it was pretty much the same message in my face. And so there were times where I had a vision that I was trying to fulfill, and ultimately I realized that the relationship, the situation with that woman was literally against my vision. Right. The relationship itself and the woman herself, as earnest as she thought she was being, from my perspective, she was literally going against my vision. And, a part of celebrating yourself as a man is to understand truly and honestly that your vision is never just for you, right? If you're trying to build something as a man, it is implied and understood that whatever it is you're building is to benefit other people. Yeah. Right. You understand? So the fact that she didn't, that again and again and again throughout the 18 years, I realized, oh, wow, you really don't see my vision. That's when it dawned on me, like, okay. Even if I'm dealing with a woman who loves me, because we loved each other. Don't get it. Like I said, it was a great relationship, in most cases. Like day to day, it was a beautiful relationship. There was no disrespect. There was nothing like where I can literally say that she treated me bad or we abused each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it was to the point where I actually had a vision and I was trying to build my vision. And every time I tried to build something up, you ever seen, like in preschool when you put the blocks on top of each other and the other kid knocks it down? You know what I'm saying? It was like that. And I was like, wow, man, like I really have to focus on me. And then at the same time, with that being said, I have to focus on finding a female who sees my vision. You understand? And so that was like the eye opener for me. And so I was able to realize how much focusing on myself, how important that was. And so most of my ideas came from that, and as well as the fact that, me and my business partner, Mr. Lucario, we've always been having these type of conversations for years. So even while I was going through that relationship, I was having these conversations. So things were being, exposed to me through the conversations, through the experiences, and somewhere along the way, it just dawned on me, bro. And then, everything just kind of came together. Because, I'll tell you one more thing. Yeah. As a business, between me and Mr. Lucario, we focused on him being the face of everything. You understand? Because he was the one with the game and all that stuff. So we started the Bad Boy membership with him as the face. And through helping him build the Bad Boy membership, and that's badboymembership.com for those of you who want to check it out. But in helping him build the Bad Boy membership, I learned a lot through that process. And then that's when I was able to come up with the Masculine Identity membership, masculineidentitymembership.com, where I was able to include the information that he wasn't including. You understand? I saw, as we built his membership, I saw a lot of I looked at society. I looked at the guys we were talking to. I looked at the issues that a lot of the guys we were talking to was having. And I started to realize that there was a gap. You understand? There was a gap. Yeah. For the internal with the mindset and the identity. And that's where the Masculine Identity membership came from. So that's why we tell guys, for example, the Bad Boy membership is literally a step-by-step tutorial program on how to date, how to literal steps of how to best practices of how to date, how to interact with women. Right. And some of it is internal as well, how to see yourself, how to, certain levels of masculinity and confidence. But the Masculine Identity membership is like the bridge between self-knowledge and then using that self-knowledge within the step-by-step practices of dating. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's two things there. In any business, there's the product and the marketing. Your masculine identity focuses on the product, and then the Bad Boy marketing, essentially, that's the marketing aspect where you can actually approach, have the confidence, but you need to fill your own cup. We always say as doctors, you can't pour from an empty cup. If your cup is empty, the analogy of the oxygen mask on a plane, you can't pour from an empty cup likewise.
Right.
You have to fill your cup. And going back to the 18-year relationship, they say we have this misconception that a partner should complete us. But in your experience, and certainly in my experience, a partner should not complete us. We should complete ourselves.
Yes.
The partner should complement us. They should complement us, not complete us. We live in this Disney fairy tale that half and half make a one.
Right.
No. You should be one yourself.
Right.
And then meet another one. And then together you can synergize and become 3 and 4 and 5.
Exactly.
That's how procreation works.
Exactly.
But this whole thing about I'm half and she's a half and we complete each other. And this whole, we get it a lot in the UK. Whenever you go to a wedding and someone introduces their wife or their fiance, this is my better half. Not only is it demeaning, this is my better half. No, she is not your half. Right. You are full and she's not better than you.
Right.
She's not worse than you. She's not better than you. She's just different to you. She complements you. And we need to change the identity. And I think feminism, Miles, has really, really, made women ashamed of being women. Women should be celebrated for being feminine, men should be for masculine. Right. Feminism's done the opposite. It's made women ashamed and tried to make women more masculine. Right. And it's made men ashamed and made men apologetic for being men. And we're seeing this now, and it's not serving anyone. We're getting a pandemic of women in their 30s and 40s not being married because they're career women, they're boss babes, and that's not in keeping with their feminine nature.
Right.
That's like a man who wants to stay at home and cook and clean. It's not in keeping with his nature as a man. And I believe in alignment. As a man, you should be aligned with your God-given purpose.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman, you should be aligned with your God-given purpose.
Mm-hmm.
When you go off track, it causes depression, anxiety, and all these kind of things. And I know people will slate me for being a doctor, but a lot of diseases and mental health come from spiritual diseases. Not being aligned with your purpose in life. And what's the first thing that you said? The ID card, driving license, your identity. You can change your name. You can change your name, but you can't change your identity, your race, your height, your eye color, your hair color. I think that's a very, very good example.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of feminism, we mentioned, do you think in your 18 years, you said there was no disrespect, but, you grew up in a strong household.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think feminism had a part to play in, how things turned out, you not being aware? Because feminism teaches us that women are the prize.
Mm-hmm.
You always chase the woman. You come second, the woman comes first. Bow down to her, get on your knees, literally get on your knees and propose. Mm-hmm. So did feminism play a part? We talked about masculinity, but did feminism play a part in 18 years and then you learning game afterwards?
Definitely. There was, so I'll say this. My dad was there in the house, but my dad, like I said, on my dad's side, very outspoken, but there was not a lot of emotional connectivity, so to speak. There was not a lot of, hey, I can go to my dad and ask him these questions, right? Or get tutelage or any type of, I can see an example. He was a very good provider and he was there. We would do things, but I could never really talk to him about certain things. And a lot of that is because he was never talked to about certain things. And I don't blame him for that or anything. I'm just letting you know the reality of my upbringing. So a lot of the social and I guess you could say emotional knowledge or intelligence and awareness that I received was from my mother. Right. And my mother my mother came to the United States when she was around 1920. And I was around. No, actually, she came to the United States when she was 23, because I came to the United States when I was 3. So she came to the United States when she was 23. So that was like prime time for her to start embracing a lot of feminine or a lot of feminist ideals and certain other things in the 80s and things like that. So, again, I was learning a lot of things from my mother socially and emotionally. And for a long time because I remember even being spanked and punished for expressing, I guess you could say, young curiosities about sex. Right. Because, there were times, I'm 5-6 years old. I had what I thought was a girlfriend, and, I had seen glimpses of pornography and different things and whatever. And I was trying things. And I'll give you an example. One time I remember, I was around 5 or 6. I think it was 6. And I was hanging out with this girl, and me and her 6 years old playing. And then I told her that she should put my penis in her mouth. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, that's what the adults do. I remember this. And she was like, I don't know, maybe we should get under the covers before we do that. Cause I don't want to see, I don't want nobody to see, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, we was about to do some stuff and her father came in the room. we ended up under the bed. Instead of getting under the covers, I said, nah, let's get under the bed. Her father came in the room and snatched the both of us from grabbed us by our limbs, snatched us out from under the bed. And I guess he must have grabbed me by the neck and took me home and told my mother what I did. And my mom, she punished me. I'll just say that. She punished me really bad. You understand? And so that's just an example of how, I was getting that type of attention from my mother directly. My dad never even spoke to me about that, like what you was doing with a little girl, or like, you know how you might say to your son, hey, you know, you might not understand this, but you're doing pretty good, young man, or, you know, that's how we get down with the ladies. Or I didn't get anything like that from my dad. It was just my mom, and she was, you know, she was in her mental state or whatever it was as a feminist or as a woman, and so she scolded me heavily for that stuff, right? And so that developed in me a certain type of like bow down reverence to women getting into my dating phases and things like that. You understand what I'm saying? But luckily, I was still able to connect with guys like Lucario in my adolescence and in my teen years and things like that, where I was still able to develop my, you know, propensity for sex and dealing with the opposite sex and things like that. But I still had that, like, you know, women and, you know, females come first, and, you know, I have to be a gentleman and blah, blah, blah. And none of those things were from me. They were literally from the teachings of a woman. You get what I'm saying? So I didn't do any of those things because I understood why I was doing them. I was just doing them because I remember being scolded for trying to quote unquote take advantage of a girl. I remember being scolded for trying to be sexual. I remember being, you know, telling women of this, women of that. You should respect women. You should be a good guy. You should be a nice guy. Blah, blah, blah. So definitely, to answer your question, definitely feminism played a big role in my stunted growth, so to speak. You understand what I'm saying? So I didn't really get into my own until around age 30, bro. I'll be honest with you. I mean, there's certain basic things I understood about the game, but there were other things that I didn't get a chance to really get into until I was in my 30s. You understand? Like to really start to solidify my identity and things like that. Yeah, in my 30s. So definitely feminism kind of held me back a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah, no, and I think that's half the battle, recognizing the damage feminism is doing, not only to men, but inadvertently and like in a self-suicide way to women. It's actually damaging women, because at least men, we can self-improve. But, you know, in our 30s. But for a woman in her 30s, it might be a bit too late. You know, she understands feminism is a whole big scam.
Right.
By the time she's 30, and she's CEO, and she's trying to look for a husband, no husband's going to touch, you know, no man's going to touch her.
Right.
But you know, it's hard to undo them formative years. But for a man, it's never too late. We can always get in shape. We can always learn game.
Right.
And like so Matthew says, a man doesn't peak till he's 38. The whole sexual market value graph that into Marcy's book,
Right.
Rational Male, a man's peak is much later.
Yeah.
And feminism's convinced women that women are the same as men, therefore women peak at 38 as well. But biologically, I can tell you as a doctor, women aren't the same as men. You know, they don't peak at 38. But men, you know, we peak much later. If you look at James Bond, all the James Bonds have been in their 40s, and all the heroines have been in their 20s.
Right.
You explain to me then how men and women are equal. We're not equal.
No, definitely.
And, you know, if we're equal, then why doesn't Serena Williams, the greatest female player of all time, play with Roger Federer? They've never had a game together. They're not the same. We're not the same. Like Marion Jones, the greatest female sprinter, and Usain Bolt, they never competed together.
Never.
Physiologically, anatomically, you know, endocrinologically, you know, psychologically, in any capacity, we're not the same.
Right.
And you mentioned there about your father. My father's the same, you know. He was there, he was present, but not emotionally. He was just there, you know, typical, like your family, immigrant family, came from Pakistan to the UK. I was born here, but my mother, like your mother, she was quite young as well. And I always say, I was reading a tweet from Tristan today. Tristan, you know, he's in detention at the moment in Romania. But
shout out to the Tate brothers. Free the Tate brothers.
Yes, man. Yes, free Top G. He put a tweet out saying, a father is not meant to be there all the time. That's the mother's role, to nurture, to make from a baby into a boy. And then a man, like our fathers, their job is to make from a boy into a man. But that formative period is missing. So the mother ends up making you from a baby into a boy and then a boy into a man. But she can't do the full job.
Right.
Because it's not in her nature to do the full job. Right. And I always say a man's job is to do the 5 Fs. As a father, you must instill the 5 Fs into your son, particularly into your son. And I put this on Twitter a few days ago, and people really started shouting at me because they're saying, yeah, we agree with some of them, but we don't agree with one of them. So the 5 F's, Miles, yeah? First is faith. Faith is, it's the most important thing.
Right.
Second is fitness, being mentally fit, physically fit, Third is fighting, not to be aggressive, but actually to learn discipline and self-defense. Fourth is fashion, understandably, how to dress properly, how to groom, how to put on a tie, how to, these things, how to shave.
Yeah.
Our fathers must teach us these things.
Yeah.
It's not a woman's job. And the 5th F, which people really scolded me for, was female nature. Teach your sons female nature.
Right.
The 5 F's.
Right.
And it's important. Female nature can only come from a man. Your father or your uncle, someone who's been through that. And I think your 18 years of experience really shows in the stuff you put out online. And I can only imagine how the course is.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, you mentioned game there. So, essentially them 5 are game, female nature, understanding how to dress, confidence, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What is game? Because there's lots of books on game and art of seduction and all these kind of things. What is game?
I say that game is a development of optimal strategies and planned strategies to get what you want in any situation based on who you are. Right. So there's always basically 2 questions. Who are you and what do you want? And game answers those 2 questions. And that's, that's pretty much it. Like there's really like game is life. Game is perspective. Game is everything. But it's really who are you? What do you want? And then you use game as far as strategy to get those things that you want in any given situation, in any environment. So a lot of guys, when we get misunderstood a lot because when guys hear the word game, they think we're just talking about dealing with women. A lot of every once in a while we get somebody in the chat room that says, all you guys do is talk about women. But it's because they're not really listening. But it's really not. It's really not about women, because even just now when you said, the 5 F's. And the 5th F is female nature. If you really break it down, you're really talking about the behavior of a man. You're really talking about masculine identity, because I like to believe that, or I say that women are always following a man's lead. So if we have issues with women in society, somewhere along the way, men drop the ball.
Yes.
You understand? So
the whole thing about frame, I mentioned to Mossy that frame.
Yeah. So to me, female nature to me is non-existent, because a woman only follows a man's lead. Female nature doesn't, I respect the idea and the connotation of it. But at the end of the day, when you break down female nature, it has everything to do with the men. You understand? So like, for example, if you're dealing with a bunch of dishonest women, I can guarantee that if you talk to them long enough, you'll find the first man that lied to them. You'll find the man that lied to them. You see what I'm saying? If you're dealing with a woman who's promiscuous, you'll find a man that treated their sexuality as if it wasn't valuable. You'll find it. You see what I'm saying? A lot of women these days. You hear a lot of women talking stuff on these podcasts. Where are the good men? I can never find a good man. All they're really saying is somewhere along the way, or maybe in a few situations, I've had men that took my trust and didn't use it in the right way, didn't use it efficiently. They took my trust and they were very careless with it. And so now it's hard for me to trust any man. It's hard for me to believe in any man. It's hard for me to respect any man, because so many different times I've been, coupled with, men who misuse my trust. You understand? And so I always bring it back to the man, always bring it back to the man. And that's what game is about. So if we want better quality women, guess what? We have to be better quality men. And that's the game of understanding our place in creating the type of society of women that we really want to have. But it takes, it takes a lot more strength. And with so many different things influencing weakness in men these days, it's becoming a difficult task, which is why guys like me exist, because I'm trying to remind men, hey, you're the one in the driver's seat. You're the one with the prestige. You're the one with the, it's your, like, I Googled the other day, what does the genetic, what genetic information does sperm contain? And this is straight off of Google. It says that all eggs have an X chromosome, meaning the female cell has an X chromosome. It is the sperm that has the X or Y chromosome. So literally, based on nature, and you're a doctor, so you tell me if I'm wrong. It is the sperm that decides. It is the sperm that determines the gender or sex of the the embryo, the zygote, whatever. It's so if on a cellular level, it is the man that determines the future, literally, then how could I ever believe in, female nature, as it were, when it is my sperm that decides? You see what I'm saying? So I think men have to remember that even if they're talking about female nature, they still have to keep in the back of their mind that, okay, female nature is determined by the consistency of my character as a man and how I deal with these women moving forward, and how my father dealt with these women and his father and all the way back. You see what I'm saying? So it's very important for us to understand our position in the world.
Absolutely. And I read a quote of the day: "You attract who you are." It's a very short quote, but it's so true, man. That is pure fact. You attract who you are. And as men, we blame, black pill or whatever, feminism, whatever. And look at us. We don't know how to dress. We're not in shape. We've not got game. We're not financially savvy. We're lacking in so many ways. And I teach all my clients all the time, in my masculine mastery course, you've got to level up on we have 7 domains: your appearance, your clothes, your fragrance, your fashion, all these things, 7 domains. On my coaching, you have to, what's the point of being a 10 in something and a 3 in something else? You have to max out in everything, as much as you can. And that's self-improvement.
Yes.
And when you become better, your stock will rise, your share price will rise.
Yep.
And I know feminists don't like me saying sexual market value, but your SME will rise as you get better with, and they say men, I don't drink, but they say men should age like wine. And it's true. We should age like wine. You said until 30, the Miles Cunningham now is infinitely better than the one at 30. Although biologically you were younger at 30, but you're much better. You've got more awareness. You're more savvy now. Yes. So men get better with time because we learn more. We calibrate more. We learn. We can financially get better, physically get better. Whereas for women, it's not the same. It is not the same. So we can't keep blaming women. We have to understand ourselves and really break away from this narrative of putting women on a pedestal, because when we put women on a pedestal, we're constantly chasing them, and that detracts from self-improvement.
Exactly.
If you're constantly chasing women, you're distracting from what you can actually attract.
Exactly.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you then, what kind of tips, can you give for a man for, firstly, self-improvement, and secondly, well, it kind of fits together anyway, to attract a higher quality woman?
Okay. So tips, I would say, first, again, consistency. And so I say the word consistency. Someone might say, what does that look like in action? Okay. What that looks like in action, for example, is to create a morning routine, right? Create a daily and a weekly schedule. So you have all of your activities planned and laid out. And then from this consistency, that allows you to be organized And from that organization, it allows you to be on point, meaning that things are taken care of. Things can be taken care of in what I like to call a flow, right? So I had this situation the other day on, I was talking about this on my Discord, and somebody asked me about organization and time management. And I was explaining to them the reason why I don't ever have to worry about doing laundry is because my clothes are organized.
You've got a day for it.
Well, not even that. Hear me out for a second. So my clothes are organized, meaning what's supposed to be in the drawer is in the drawer. What's supposed to be hung up is hung up. What's supposed to be folded is folded. And as I continue to use clothes, socks, underwear, whatever, I start to see my underwear drawer getting light. Like I see that I'm running out of underwear. I see that I'm running out of socks. And because those are the basics of clothing, right? And when I see, because I'm organized, because I have a sock drawer and I have an underwear drawer, because I'm organized, it's easy for me to see that. And then my life is organized where I live in an apartment that has a washer and dryer in the unit, right? And so I'm able to and I have a hamper. So I'm organized where I have clean clothes, and I'm even organized where I have dirty clothes. And so when I see this going down, I reach in the drawer to get a new pair of underwear. I see it going down. I'm able to just toss clothes into the washing machine, and then later on toss them into the dryer in the flow of my day. You understand? And the only reason why I'm able to detect when I need to do laundry is because of the organization that came first. You understand? So having a routine that supports consistency and being organized, those are the things that allows me to live an efficient life, where you won't catch me with dirty clothes. You won't catch me with a dirty house, because I have my life organized to the point where I can do spot cleaning very easily. You understand? My dishes are a certain way. Like everything is organized, and everything is I'm able to see at a glance. All the while I have a routine and I have my everything scheduled, my time is scheduled, everything is, you understand? So consistency is a big tip, and it also goes in line with the ultimate nature of God, the consistency of God, the consistency of man, the stoicism, the ability to do the same thing over and over and over and find peace in that, find pleasure in that. And, and so that goes back to identity, that, it all connects. It all connects. So, I thought about 15 minutes before I got on this live, I was like, what am I wear? And I know I could find this shirt with my eyes closed. You understand? I can find my jewelry with my eyes closed, because I have a little jewelry chest with all my watches, my chains, my rings. You understand? I could do all of those things with my eyes closed, and it's the organization that allows me to be so efficient. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's one of the biggest things: consistency, organization, and what was the second part?
Second part is it feeds into the first part,
right?
Self-improvement, and you mentioned consistency being the mainstay of that, and then as a result, not as the intention, but as a byproduct of self-improvement, you attract a higher quality woman.
All right, attracting a higher quality woman. Now, another thing that makes organization so important is that because you can see your life at a glance and everything is organized, what happens is, okay, I'll say this before I get into that. You see, have you ever heard of, all right, as a photographer, have you ever heard or anything that you do, they say that the best equipment you have, the best equipment is the equipment that you have. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
Meaning that, it's not about going out and buying the most expensive stuff. It's learning how to use what you have to the highest efficiency, right? So, like I said before, there's no such thing as female nature. So that goes to say that there's no such thing as a quality woman. Now, I don't say that to belittle women. Listen to what I'm saying. there are women all over the place. But what makes a woman quality to me per se is not exactly what's going to make a woman quality to you, Dr. Asif. You get what I'm saying? Because I have different needs entirely than you do. I have a different life entirely than you do, right? So what makes a woman quality is my ability to influence her to fit into my life efficiently and to become an asset to me. That's what makes the woman a quality. It's impossible. Logically speaking, it's impossible for her to be a quality woman just on her own. Now, she can be a quality woman as far as her ability to produce for society as a citizen, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But a woman is not a quality woman until she becomes a quality woman to me. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
how she complements your life.
Exactly. Remember, we talked about that. The complement, not the supplement, the complement, right? In order for a woman to effectively complement my life, in order for a woman to effectively become an asset, I have to know what my life is about, front, backwards, and with my eyes closed. So when she comes into my life, I can tell her where she fits in. If I'm unable to express to her efficiently how to make my life better, she will never become a quality woman for me. You see what I'm saying? So if you want to attract a quality woman, it is contingent upon you creating a quality life that is consistent, organized, and something that is efficient. That is because whether or not you ever meet a good woman, you should always be elevating, whether or not. Right. The point is that let's just say you were going to elevate, you were going to get to that next level in 2 years, but you meet that woman and she helps you to get to that next level in 6 months. That's a quality woman. Right. But how would she be able to help you get to the next level in 6 months? It's because you're organized. And when she came into your life, before you even told her, she can see your movements because you're consistent, because you're organized. Just like how you can see your underwear drawer getting low and you're like, oh, I gotta do some laundry, right? She'll come into your life and she can see your underwear drawer getting low. And she'd be like, you know what, babe, I'm gonna do some laundry today because I see your socks. You only got like 3 or 4 pair of socks left. So I'm gonna do some laundry for you today. And then you see, oh, wow, she saw that. But how was she able to see that? She was able to see it because of you being organized. Do you understand? So it's literally the quality of the man that dictates the quality of the woman. So the woman is not quality on her own in your life. You understand? That's the caveat, in your life. She's quality when she comes into your life and can see where she can be quality. And either you're going to tell her or she's going to see it based on the fact of you being so organized and you running a quality scenario, you running a quality, a lot of times we use the analogy of your life being a business. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you run a quality business, everything is organized. All of your employees know exactly what they're supposed to do and they do it efficiently. So she comes in as a consultant and she's like, oh, wow, I can increase productivity here, here, and here. Boom. And she gets it done. That's a quality woman. But you only get that if you're running a quality company. So the quality of a woman is contingent of the quality of the man.
Facts. Big facts. I completely agree with that. She should complement. She should take it from 100 to 120%.
Yep.
And like Jordan Peterson says, show me a disorganized desk, and I will show you a disorganized mind. He said this.
Exactly.
He's a psychologist. Because the first thing you should do is make your bed.
Yes.
It takes 5 seconds, but it sets your day off.
Yes.
In a form of organization.
Yes.
You made your bed. You put your socks away, you do all these things in order. And the second thing it does, this organization, it brings a lot of these routine menial tasks into the back of your brain, into your hind brain. Right. So your executive function is freed up. Creative process, you've got cognitive capacity now. You're not thinking, what should I wear? Oh, I've not got any food. Everything is taken care of in the background.
Exactly.
So you can concentrate on content creation, creativity, things that will drive you forward and create value in the world.
Exactly.
And it's I had a chat with Isaiah McCall a few months ago, and we talked about the man-child, how today's men our children.
Yeah.
Because they're still thinking about their underwear and their t-shirts, and because that's what a child does.
Right.
I've got a 4-year-old son, and he thinks about these things. But as a man, you should not be thinking about these things. They should be right in the background.
Mm-hmm.
System, structure, strategy. I always say 3 S's. System, structure, strategy. And if you look at Zuckerberg and Bezos and Musk, they wear the same kind of thing. Because it takes away the cognitive load. They've got a routine, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this, etc. They've got, and even to build a good physique, you can't fluke a good physique.
Right.
You gotta have a strategy, man. Like you got
Exactly.
look at Kobe. Strategy, bro. Like it's so important. And I think this last answer was the longest and the most eye-opening for me. But it goes back right to the first point you mentioned.
Yes.
Or the first 2 points: consistency, and going back to your course, self-awareness.
Yes.
Masculine identity. Self-awareness, being aware of who you are as a man and where you need to get to.
Yes.
Don't be black pill or whatever these pills are, and blame society, blame your mother, and blame feminism, and blame media, and etc. Racism. A lot of people say that's racism and blah 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 blah. We don't care. Marcus Aurelius said nobody cares about this stuff.
Right.
Change the things that you can change. Because some of the greatest people in the world, like if you look at Abraham Lincoln, he had horrible conditions. They said he had a form of gigantism, horrible depression, but still became one of the most beloved presidents. Right. So many people have, debilitating conditions. Joe Biden, his wife died, his daughters died, he's got a speech impediment. He can still get to the top.
Right.
Don't blame the circumstances. Very good book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way.
Yeah.
The Obstacle is the Way. Stoicism again.
Yeah.
Great book.
I mean, I have a program on the Masculine Identity membership called The Importance of Struggle. You understand? I understand that every man needs struggle in his life. It's so interesting because I grew up with a speech impediment. I had a terrible stuttering problem, and now I talk for a living. Imagine that. So exactly. So it's ridiculous how struggle helps you to develop, and it makes you strong because I like the old proverb, or I'm not sure if it's a proverb, just a saying or a quote, but I forget who said it, but it goes easy times create weak men create hard times, and then hard times create strong men. Yes. And then strong men create easy time, and the cycle goes around. So it's a testament. It's a cycle. Yeah, it's a testament to struggle, though. When we struggle, that's when we create the strongest of us. You understand? And yes, on an individual level, it is our job to embrace the struggle, because when we can embrace it, that's when we can practice on being our strongest. You understand? A lot of people love to embrace comfort and a lack of struggle. And I dare say that's only going to make you weak. You're better off embracing struggle. You're better off embracing challenge and difficulty, because that's what's going to make you the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And I checked my Twitter today. I put a quote saying, pressure. Actually, I put it on, with your story, saying heat and pressure creates men and diamonds. You can't become a man without pressure and heat. And I'd love to end this podcast with this one quote.
Yes.
And Andrew Tate shared it on his Twitter. It says, "When I heard God tests his most beloved and his strongest soldiers, I took the pain as a badge of honor." Yeah. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful.
Yeah, that's heavy. Yep.
Miles, been an absolute pleasure having you on. Really, we could speak for hours and hours and hours. Whenever you're in the UK, please do hit me up. I'd love to show you around, get you in the studio as well.
Yep.
How can people find you online?
Well, so, like I was saying, my my name is there, masculineidentitymembership.com. That's my membership. That's my premium exclusive content. But you could also find me on Instagram at Miles in the Game. So just one word, Miles in the Game. And you can also email me at milesinthegame@gmail.com. And you can find more of my products at badboymembership.com as well. Badboymembership.com. That's another membership thing that Mr. Lucario and I been working on for years. So yeah, so badboymembership.com, masculineidentitymembership.com, and you can get me on Instagram at Miles in the Game, and also on YouTube. Just type in Miles Cunningham on YouTube, and you can find me there. And my handle on YouTube is also Miles in the Game, because YouTube started to let you have handles now. So yeah, it's also Miles in the Game. All right. So yeah, man. But Dr. Asif, I appreciate you for having me, man. And keep doing the work that you do, because it's necessary, and we're seeing it's more and more necessary these days. So continue the great work, and I hope to be in the UK soon, and we can get together, man. Definitely.
Thank you, man.